Okay, I think we have a lot of participants online, so we can get started. So welcome to the Ecosystem Services Workshop of the Protect Baltic Stakeholder Conference. We are your facilitators today. I'm Aino Ahvo. I'm a researcher at the HELCOM Secretariat working in the project. And with me is Susanna.
Sanna Jäänberg. I'm a researcher at Finnish Environment Institute, Syke, here in Helsinki. I'm also involved in the project Protect Baltic in the work package 4, where we look at ecosystem services.
Yes, thank you, Susanna. So we will be your guides today. And we are the hosts of this online workshop, but you have to remember at the same time we have an in-person workshop going on with the exact same questions and with the exact same work. And we will be excited at the end of the day to see the results from both the online and in-person workshops. We have 60 people registered for this online event and about over 30 people registered in the in-person event. So 100 people interested in ecosystem services. So we are really happy to see that. The lead for the ecosystem services work package is Lois Watt, and you can see her later today in the plenary session giving a wrap up of these two workshops. Yeah. The aims of the workshop today is to promote ocean literacy on marine ecosystem services in relation to marine protected areas and to collect information from you, to provide you stakeholders with a dynamic space to exchange perspectives and provide critical insights to Protect Baltic's work package work on Baltic Sea ecosystem services. And our agenda here today, we're going to start with a couple of questions to get the lay of the land. And then Susanna will give a short presentation into ecosystem services. And then we're going to test you on that presentation. No, I'm just kidding. We are all friends here, no testing needed. Then we're going to go into the actual work in breakout groups and then round off together in the last 15 minutes before lunch. And yeah. Next up is the Slido round, so you can see the Slido like you did in the main session on the workshop chat. And Slido, and you can answer the first question is, why did you choose this workshop? I see answers coming in. I'm curious and want to learn more about ecosystem services. I want to share my thoughts and opinions on ecosystem services. I want to understand whether it is relevant for my sector. Well, a couple of answers. I don't like it and want to challenge the idea. This will create some interesting questions, but many of you are curious and want to learn more about ecosystem services. Thank you for all your votes. The next question is, how familiar are you with ecosystem services? You can give a star from 1, never heard of it, to 5 stars, I'm an expert in ecosystem services. To get an understanding, we are a great mix of people here from different sectors and backgrounds, and we would like to get the baseline of what kind of level we are at. 50% answering that they're in the middle, not the experts, but not complete newbies. 20% complete experts. So that's great because I'm not an expert. So this is also a learning opportunity for me. And no answers to 1-star. So you have at least heard of ecosystem services. Well, we heard some talk in Jannika's presentation just now about ecosystem services. So you should be familiar with the subject, at least on some level. And with this experience level in mind, we can go to the next question, which is what do you hope to gain from this workshop? This is an open text question, so you can write a short answer. And we hope we can answer some of your hopes. Of course, we have already designed this workshop, so we can't change it on the fly, but let's hope our planning and your hopes connect. Okay, someone is writing new insights, knowledge, applicability of ecosystem frameworks, knowledge transfer, learn more about the Baltic Sea. That's good. To understand how my sector can contribute to the ecosystem biodiversity and marine ecosystem overall. That's nice. Better understanding of different stakeholder perspectives. That's my hope too. Ecosystem services in the Baltic Sea. There's still a couple of people typing. Let's get some more answers. Level of knowledge in Protect Baltic, that's good. I'm not the best person to ask, but we have some, Susanna is an expert on ecosystem services, and we have good people working on Protect Baltic. How to apply ecosystem services in marine spatial planning. Thank you. Very nice hopes for this workshop. I hope we can answer that. But first, we would like to get everyone on the same level concerning ecosystem services, and to help with that, Susanna will give a short presentation about ecosystem services.
Yes, thank you, Aino. It was a really nice poll to begin this session. Next, we will talk shortly about ecosystem services and what they are. I know that many of you know the concept probably already, and there are a few experts already included. But for those of you who may not be so familiar with the concept, I will just give you a really quick, short introduction to the whole idea, and so that we can start from the same page when we start the group work and talking more in depth about this concept. We will look at the basics of the ecosystem services. Then we will look shortly about the cascade model, so how the ecosystem services flow from the ecosystems to humans. Then I will remind you about our project, so what we will do in the work package 4 of this Protect Baltic project. And then we will introduce the group work more in depth. But yeah, what are ecosystem services? The concept was first developed to emphasize and highlight all the benefits, all the unseen benefits that we humans get from the nature and ecosystem. So it tries to make invisible ecological processes that our lives are dependent on and that are underpinning our well-being visible. So those processes that are invisible, it tries to make those visible. And Millennium Ecosystem Assessment defines ecosystem. So the term begins with the ecosystem. It defines Millennium Ecosystem Assessment defines ecosystem as a dynamic complex of plant, animal, and microorganism communities and the non-living environment interacting as a functional unit. And that functional unit is producing benefits to us humans. So those contributions of those ecosystems that lead to benefits to us are called ecosystem services. And common international classification of ecosystem services classifies the ecosystem services into 3 classes. We can have provisioning services such as food and water, so the kind of concrete materials, tangible materials that we get from the nature. Then we have regulating and maintenance services, which are more regulating the environment that we live in. For example, we can have climate regulation, which in fact is kind of carbon sequestration and carbon stocks that are in the environment. We can have flood control that protects us people from the floods, disease control, and so on. And then we have this other kinds of benefits and services, cultural services, which are then all the kind of spiritual, recreational, or cultural benefits that we get from the nature. So from the policy perspective, this term tries to make all these benefits visible. And of course, when we talk about ecosystem services, the valuation of these services comes to a question. And many of these services can be monetary valued. So it's quite visible value that we can give to the services when we give them a monetary value. But in this project, we want to emphasize there are also other kinds of values, and some of the ecosystem services may be quite difficult even value with monetary terms, but there are maybe other valuation systems that we can use instead to value those services. So basically, this whole concept is very interdisciplinary, and it tries to combine all kinds of different fields, from the natural sciences to economics to social sciences, to get a kind of overview of all the benefits that we get that are important for us humans. Here's an example of how various the ecosystem services can be that only one ecosystem can produce. There are different kinds of ecosystem components, such as blue mussels and kelp forests, seen in here and here, that are producing, for example, regulating services. Then there's a combination of different ecosystem components and historical, cultural elements that are forming some of the cultural services, such as the heritage site mentioned here. We may have a coastal heritage trail, which is important for the visitors. Then we have this quite more traditional cultural services found here, these recreational services. And if the environment is suitable, we may also have a golf course on top of the headlands here. So very variable and various services are generated in this only small area. This is now, of course, an example, but just to visualize the various services. But basically, how the ecosystem services then flow from the ecosystems is an interesting question This is the basic idea which is very often used to understand the flow of the services from the ecosystems. So the basic element here is the ecosystem, which has structures such as the blue mussel bed or the kelp forest. And those structures are producing functions. And these together lead to final services that are the contributions of the nature that then lead to the benefits to us humans. And these benefits then we can value either using the economical values, the monetary values, or other kinds of values such as social value systems. And this, of course, again, looks quite simple if we remember from the plenary session where Jannika showed us the complex picture of pressures and human activities linked to those pressures. I would say that this picture, when put in real life, would look quite similar. So there's a lot of interactions, a lot of different components, a lot of different ecosystem properties and functions producing and contributing to the ecosystem services that then lead to the benefits. So understanding this whole system is quite a challenge. Shortly about the list of the services that we are actually using today in the workshop. Here are some of the provisioning services. On the left, there are plant aquaculture for nutrition, materials, and energy, and the same for animal aquaculture. And then we look at wild plants and wild animals that are harvested for our benefits separately. Then from the regulating and maintenance services category, there are all different kind of services listed. For example, the climate regulation on the bottom, which usually is considered as a carbon sequestration and storage, which I mentioned before. You will have a chance to look at the list later in more detail when we start the group work. And then there are the cultural services that have their own separate category here. These range from the recreational services to education and training and to culture and heritage and so on. So a lot of different services also here in the Baltic Sea. And now about the project very shortly. So in this Protect Baltic project, in the work package 4, we are looking and concentrating particularly on these ecosystem services. And so the work package 4 progresses and assesses ecosystem services and their value to society. And we will develop a versatile methodology to assess the ecosystem services in the Baltic Sea. And this now means that we will first identify all the services that are present in the marine protected areas and also outside of them. Then we will try to map as many of the services as possible for the whole Baltic Sea area. We will try to quantify the services. So it's not enough to know where the services are produced or located. We also try to quantify how much services are produced in a certain area. And then finally, we will value the services. So put an actual value, which can then be used, for example, in the policy making. And these are the main kind of steps that we aim to achieve. And in addition to that, or actually on the side of that, we are especially and particularly interested in habitat quality, how habitat quality, so kind of the state of the habitat and the sea affects the production of the ecosystem services and the capacity of the ecosystem to produce those services. As we heard from the presentation before, if we would have a better state of the Baltic Sea, we might have a even increased value of the production of those values that we gain from the sea. And in addition to the habitat quality, we are interested in taking the ecosystem function into account when we are valuing the services. So the complex ecosystem functions in multiple ways, and how the functioning affects the service provision is in one of our core interests. And of course, there has been a lot of work done already in the Baltic Sea region about the ecosystem services. So we will definitely start building from that. So we will take everything that has been done already into account, and we don't have to start from scratch. There's already a lot of work done. So we will build on that and see how far we get with this concept. Very interesting years to come. So I think that was my part. I will give the floor back to Aino at this point, and thank you very much. We will have the next question in Slido.
Yes, thank you, Susanna. Please go back to the right-hand side workshop Slido and answer the question. Now, after the presentation, what do you think of when you hear the term ecosystem services? Are we all on the same page? I know it's a difficult concept to put in few words, but please do try. I'm excited to see what you got from Susanna's presentation. I see human impact. Yes, humans impact ecosystem services. They are crucial to well-being, benefits for humans. Yes, this is a big topic. It's a human-centric view of the ecosystem that they produce services to us, but of course they have a value on their own. Ecosystem services, what the sea can give us, foundation for survival, life support, crucial to well-being, nature benefits for humans. Yes, they are crucial to us, and we could not live without them, and that's why we need to protect marine environment, and that's why we need to protect Baltic Project. Thank you so much for your answers. You can still type them in, but I will now guide you to the actual work we're about to do, which will be done in small groups. So if you haven't already, please click the green button to share your video and audio so you can then in our small groups talk and interact with people. And to do this group work, we will be using Miro. Please put a thumbs up from the emoji reaction down below if you have used Miro. Good. I see some thumbs up. That's great. When you get to your breakout groups, you can instruct those who have not used Miro, but I will now shortly present how it works. So Miro is this collective facilitation board. It's like Post-its, but on the internet. So this is what our Miro board is going to look like. You will each group will have this beautiful, colorful scheme to work on, and we will go through them step by step. In Miro, you can zoom and move on the board using your mouse, and I'm using a touchpad, which is nice. You can zoom with your fingers, but you can also zoom in here and use the pad to move around. But then when you get to your breakout groups, you can find your own Miro board where you'll be working. They are numbered according to your breakout groups. So breakout group 1, go to this board numbered 1, and then 2, and so forth. And the first thing we will ask you to do is introduce yourself to the group. So take a post-it. Please use one color for each participant and use the same color throughout the whole workshop. On the post-it, please write your name and the sector you work in, and then place it on this map so we can see if your sector and your work is on a local, regional, national, or trans or supranational scale. That is task number 1. And then we get to the actual ecosystem services part, which is these tables. So with your group, you can go through these tables where we have the provisioning, regulation and maintenance, and cultural ecosystem services. We want you to first individually vote your top 3 ecosystem services. So take from here the post-it of your color and then place one post-it to each of the top 3 ecosystem services individually. We're excited to see who votes for what and why. And that's what you will be discussing in the third part in your group. After you have voted, please share what kind of similarities and differences you saw between your votes in this question. Again, use these post-it notes. You can pick one from here, and if you double click, you can write on it, hello. And then drag it using your mouse to the board. And then after using this discussion, we would like for your group to collectively choose your group's top 3 ecosystem services. So within discussion based on these individual voting, please select your 3 top services and write them in here in these text boxes. For this task, we will give you 15 minutes and then we will regroup here in the main room and see what you have come up with, and then we will give you more instructions. I will post the link to the Miro board in the chat. Just a second. And then we will divide you into breakout rooms, and please bear with us for a while. We are new to this portal, so I hope it works. I hope you can all access the Miro link in the chat. Please write if you cannot. And now I will sort you into breakout rooms. And with Susanna, we will check in your groups to help you if you have any questions. But you can always write in the workshop chat also if you have any technical questions. But now I hope you have a good time in the breakout rooms. And there are some post-it instructions also in the Miro board that you can always follow. So welcome back to the main session. Sorry to break up your good discussion, but we just wanted to check that everything is all right. Can you hear me well, by the way? Or is my microphone? It sometimes just doesn't work, and I don't know why. But I hope you had some good discussions about ecosystem services in your group. Maybe Aurelia and your group What is your group number? Can you share what you discussed? What were your top 3 ecosystems?
Hi. Yeah, we're group number 2.
Great.
We're quite a small group. There's 3 of us that filled in the charts. Do you want me to share it, or shall I share?
You can just tell me what your top 3 groups, top 3 ecosystem services were.
Okay, so we all were interested in regulation and maintenance services, and our top one with 3 votes was maintaining or regulating nursery populations and habitats. Then we had climate regulation with 2 votes, 1 vote for reduction of nutrient loads and mediation of waste. And then there were 2 votes for cultural services, 1 for scientific investigation and the other one for recreation, and then 1 for provisioning a wild animal harvest for nutrition.
Great. And how did you decide on a group, or what is the most important as a group? What would you like to focus on later in the group work?
So we all voted for the maintaining and regulating nursery populations and habitats. All
Okay,
3 of us.
great.
So we said that's our top one.
Great. So you can work with that on the later part of the workshop, and don't worry if you had technical problems on the first part. You can still continue on the same Miro board while we continue the group work. But to those of you who got the votes in and chose your group's top 3 services, ecosystem services, then I would like you to move on to question number 4, which is, what is the value or importance of these services to your sector? So here you can click, I don't know why this keeps hiding these texts, but here you can write the services that you voted for as a group, service 1, like yours were nursery habitats, and you can discuss amongst your group why is it valuable to you, or why it may not be valuable to you and your sector. And you can write your answers again with your own color and place it here. And then on the 5th question, I would like you as a group to decide on the scale from economic to sociocultural values what the value of this benefit is in relation to economic or sociocultural well-being. Is the nursery areas more of an economic benefit or more of a sociocultural benefit? Is a sliding scale. And then if you have more time, or if you're really fast, then you can go to question number 6. Do you feel like these services are considered enough by researchers, politicians, the civil society, etc.? If not, elaborate on who should consider the service more and discuss in your group. And you can, again, write your services here, like fish nursery areas. Thank you. I will divide you again into the same breakout groups, hopefully, but I would like to ask if you have any questions at this moment. I can come to your breakout rooms again to help individually, but if you have some questions now, I'm happy to help.
Oh, you're back.
Actually, I was in the break room too, but I was alone.
Yes, sorry about this. We thought we would be able to sort you in the same breakout rooms, but that is not possible. So what we're gonna do, because you are so few, we are all gonna work on breakout group 4's table, where you where you voted for services, climate regulation, recreation, and cultural heritage. So please, in the Miro board, go to breakout group 4's table. I can share my screen so we are all there. Okay, here we are. So we can all now discuss what is the value or importance of these services. So climate regulation, recreation, culture, or heritage. You can take a post-it, doesn't matter which color it is, and write why is, first of all, climate regulation important, valuable to your sector, or why it might not be, and then why recreation is valuable to your sector, and why culture or heritage is valuable to your sector. I see that some have answered that all services are valuable from my sector. And I think separating them is an issue. Please, who thinks separating these services is an issue? If you have courage enough to open your microphone and speak.
I think it's an issue.
Okay, why do you think so?
I think you can't really separate cultural heritage from fishing, for example. Like it's the same for some people. And I think putting them into those categories is a very modern approach to kind of seeing non-human nature. And I think it might have been why we are in the crisis that we're right now. And maybe we need better approaches that are more holistic and don't really see it as separate silos.
Mm. Thank you. An important point.
If I may comment, I'm
yes.
in the Baltic and I'm having kind of not contributing to the answers, not to deviate the results of the exercise you're doing. But I was a little bit curious to see that the ecosystem services that have been chosen for the exercise do not include abiotic services. When in the introductory talk, it has been spoken about renewable energy sector developing in the Baltic and the importance of the shipping sector also in the Baltic, which is not now able to kind of point at the areas of biggest importance for them in this discussion, because those services are not to be chosen from. So how do you, in a way, open up for the input from sectors that need the maritime space for services that are not biotic services? Just wanting to challenge a little bit the flaw that I have seen if you really want to make this discussion very inclusive to sectors that may have a big interest in planning and area distribution in the Baltic for the different purposes or the services that the Baltic Sea needs to deliver for society.
Yes, very important topic. And Susanna, our expert, may have.
not maybe from the perspective of this project and workshop, not from my expertise, but I think that's a really important point. This is definitely not a complete list of services. It was like a kind of limited list that we brought to this workshop, but definitely something may be left out, and that's really good point that all the abiotic services are now missing. And actually we would list, or at least make an addition. You could make a post-it note there that this is missing, and this is also a really good reminder for us in the future that we should maybe in the project also consider these purely abiotic services on the side, because surely they are considered when, for example, marine spatial planning is done. But from the ecosystem services point of view, this might be an aspect that is very often forgotten. So yes, important point. We will definitely consider that also. And it's not, we won't forget these abiotic services.
If I could maybe react a bit from the project side.
Yes, please.
We focus on biotic ecosystem services because the project is about protecting biodiversity, and that's why and biodiversity produce these biotic ecosystem services, like abiotic ones, for instance, use of space for shipping or energy production. These activities or uses come into the analysis via activities and pressures. That explains a bit the focus on biotic ones, and at least this is what was the maybe we set the scope for HOLAS assessments, HOLAS 3 assessments, and of course it's the list of ecosystem services is open, but we should maybe consider carefully what is the purpose if we want to consider these abiotic ecosystem services and how they come into the analysis. If we talk about biodiversity, protection of the biodiversity, marine protected areas, etc. So these abiotic ones like shipping and energy use of the space, they come in not in terms of ecosystem services, but in terms of sea uses, creating pressures or competing for space. But not necessarily they need to be considered as ecosystem services. But that's from the perspective of the project. But it's just a starting point how we came up with this list of ecosystem services focusing on biotic ones. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Any comment? Susanna still?
Yeah, I can add to that really nice addition, and that's true that because in the work package 4 we are focusing on modeling of the services, and particularly looking at the state and functioning of the system and how that affects the service provision. As we heard from the presentation from Jannika before, there are some of these services or space uses that are not dependent on the state of the sea, and this is maybe one of them, that using the sea area for certain sectors. But yeah, important points.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to discuss? Otherwise, I will just go and view your wonderful post-its and pick one at random. So, value cultural heritage. Cultural and conservation sectors strongly opposing each other. They need to work together, maybe by valuing the same ES. Why do you think cultural and conservation sectors strongly oppose each other. Who did this?
That was my comment. Friederike Prove from working as a consultant for the Federal Agency for Nature Conservation in Germany. And we've had several occasions lately where the cultural sectors or also the recreational sectors were strongly opposing proposed conservation measures and saying, now we want our own free space, we don't want any regulations and limitations. And I think what was missing there was to value the ecosystem services that we get from a healthy nature, basically. And kind of like a joint focus on a common goal might help to bring those sectors closer together and work in the same direction rather than opposing each other.
Yes. Can you think of any goal, like maybe a marine protected area could be one of these areas where cultural and conservation come together?
Exactly. That would be exactly the thing to think of, like having rich biodiversity that is ensured by a protected area could benefit tourism or also recreational sports or even fishing. But in the current discussion we had here nationally, there was very, very strong opposition from all sectors against protected areas.
Oh, that's interesting. What kind of arguments did they have against? Just
they had mostly emotional and non-scientific or non-rational arguments, and they were basically afraid that their freedom of executing whatever their activity was would be reduced. So the sailors were afraid that they couldn't sail anywhere anymore. The fishers were afraid that they couldn't fish anymore, and so on.
Yeah, that is a hard question, and that's why ocean literacy and the spread of knowledge about the ecosystem services and the function of the marine environment and environment in general is so important, and that's also one of the aspects we are trying to raise awareness of in Protect Baltic. Thank you. I see here that in the column, why is this service not important for you? Someone has written, there are just more important stuff for me. Who please wrote this, and can you tell me what, in your opinion, is the most important ecosystem service?
Okay, it was me. I put it here because I just didn't vote for those for climate regulation and recreation, because I think that, for example, for recreation, people can do this only when environment is in a good condition. So I think that just more important stuff, and to enjoy the environment, we have to protect it first. Yes.
Okay. And what did you vote for in the list of ecosystem components, ecosystem services, as your most important one?
In a cultural, I vote for scientific investigation, because I think that we should have as much knowledge as we can to show people why we should protect those areas.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we have had a good discussion. If anyone else would like to say something still about the value of climate regulation, recreation, or cultural heritage ecosystem services, please open up your mic and share with the group. If you don't, we can move to the next part on the Mara board, part number 5. On this scale, where would you map the value of this benefit in relation to economic or social, cultural well-being values? So first service was this climate regulation. Do we think it's more an economic or socio-cultural value? And then recreation was the second one. And culture or heritage.
Can I
The last one.
ask clarification question?
Yeah.
It's about these values because we have a different indicators and methods how we value economically or socially. So I just wonder how we can place, according what kind of assumptions we can place it on the same scale. Because we have different criteria and indicators how we evaluate economically climate regulations and if we are looking from social cultural perspective. So that's why, how to answer it. Or maybe I cannot get clear the question because you asked, you map the value of this benefit. So I have to have a one value for this climate regulation, but I have a different methods how I'm valuing, and these are not comparative.
Yeah. Maybe Susanna has some insight on this, but I think this is like a human. I know there are different indicators to both count the economic and socio-cultural values, but do you feel that indicators, there are more indicators on the economic side or on the socio-cultural side? And do you feel that those indicators then place more emphasis on either the economic or socio-cultural values? I hope we can get other opinions and make this a discussion, because this is very interesting, whether we value in a socio-cultural or economic way.
Yeah, and I guess the idea behind this question was that these are not supposed to be kind of opposing values. You can choose the middle point there if you think that the value is realized in both ways, but in which way, in economic or in social way, is the value kind of realized for the service more? I think that was the idea.
Yeah, if we think as a group that climate regulation has equally economic and socio-cultural benefits, then we can place the post-it in the middle. And maybe we can also do this one as a voting system, so you can all get post-its and place one inside here, and whether climate regulation is more economic or more socio-cultural, and then do the same for recreation and cultural heritage. And this natural values circle is just here to remind us that all ecosystem services have an intrinsic natural value, and we have to remind that, keep that always in the back of our heads, even though ecosystem services is a human concept. We always rely on nature. So here, if you want, yes, you can take a post-it vote and place it here on the economic and socio-cultural scale, and we will see what you think about climate regulation, recreation, and cultural heritage. And please, if you have something to say, please open your mic.
I was wondering, because I'm not a biologist, and the term services comes from like labor, right? Like we do services to other humans and we're paid for it. But I mean, like nature doesn't really have to pay rent or buy food in the same way we do. So I was wondering, is there like something where we talk about ecosystem services that we do for nature, like that a company can do for nature and get paid for it and have a wage? Or is this only regarded as something that nature does for humans?
I again refer to our expert Susanna here.
Okay, thanks, Aina. I guess there are even more better experts on ecosystem services involved. So if anybody has some answer to that quite difficult question, please feel to like take the stage. But I know that the term service has been criticized also in the literature for being very, very human-centric and kind of like how can the nature serve us? But I guess the original idea of the term is to kind of just to highlight the kind of contributions from nature to humans. But of course, we can, as human societies, also decide what kind of impact we have on the nature itself. So we can have a really damaging one, or we can also have positive one. So I guess that's where the two-side effect comes into question. So what kind of impact and effect we want to produce as human societies. So far in the history, our impact has been quite maybe producing a lot of pressures and damaging the environment, but we can decide, I think we can decide also other way around. But if anyone wants to comment this, please feel free.
If I may react, I think maybe what should be reminded is the definition what was provided at the beginning. If we talk about ecosystem services, then it relates to contribution of the ecosystem to providing human benefits. That's the concept and definition. So yeah, I would remind this. So that's in principle it means contribution of the ecosystem, not humans. But maybe what I would like to add is that for many ecosystem services there is also for when they became as a services, it's a co-production of ecosystem and human capital. So like, for instance, fish for human consumption, which is provisioning ecosystem service. So it's produced by ecosystem, but also we need human capital to catch this fish. And so this is also one aspect which needs to be taken into account for, in particular for provisioning ecosystem services, could be also for to some extent also for cultural ecosystem services. Yeah, but otherwise these are contributions of the ecosystem when we talk about ecosystem services.
Thank you, Christina and Susanna, for these. I would like to add that in Protect Baltic project, we are giving human service to nature with the restoration part of our work. So we are going to build a restoration toolbox so that regionally across the Baltic Sea, we will have jointly agreed measures that we can take to restore nature in the best and most effective way in marine protected areas, but also outside. So I would see this restoration as the human service to the ecosystem. Thank you. Any other questions concerning value and other? If not, I would like to point here, get to the Mire board and see the votes of the economic and sociocultural axis, and we see the climate regulation is strongly favored us being both, but there is one vote in the economic side, and I would like to ask whose vote it is and discuss this vote, because it is an interesting one, and we would like to hear more about your views on the economic value of climate regulation.
Yeah, that was me. I guess it's quite easy to just sit there unnoticed and not stuff doesn't really the colors don't really coincide anymore. But I was thinking from the perspective of sectors, you know, like decarbonization, and linking it to more like the like viewing value from the perspective of, you know, like the value of monetary carbon, value of carbon, and then utilizing the capacity of the ecosystem to regulate, and then to increase like service supply to counter that, you know, like the increase our ability to adapt to climate from more like a sectoral perspective, I guess. So that's why I thought it was economic.
Well, can I ask what your sector is?
Well, I mean, it's all like so
Okay.
it's not really, I don't really have a sector that I represent, but my interest, I guess, is decarbonization. So sectors like shipping, in this case.
And do you feel this value of decarbonization can be more measured in money than, for example, human well-being? I know I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Just interested in hearing your opinion.
As far as I know, I think it's quite a good one for monetary valuation, like quite a good service for monetary valuation, because you can use carbon. But yeah, that's pretty much it, really. I mean, you could look at multiple perspectives, but I guess that was my kind of initial.
Yes, thank you for humoring me with your answer. I won't tease you anymore. There are no wrong answers. There's just interesting answers. All answers are interesting, and I'm here to pick your brain. But I think everyone has voted on the values, economic and socio-cultural, between all these different services. And now we still have some time, so we can go to question number 6. Do you think these services, climate regulation, recreation, cultural heritage, are considered enough by researchers, politicians, civil society, etc.? You can again take post-its and write your opinions on the board, or then open up your mic and speak up so we may hear from you. I see here one purple post-it saying civil society. Is this in relation to climate regulation? Do you think civil society does not take climate regulation into consideration enough? Or
yes, exactly.
Okay. What would you like for the civil society to do concerning climate regulation?
I think that like people cannot accept the regulation if they put them in less comfortable situation, but because they are like short-term looking for the future, I think.
Yeah. And that is a tough one to solve, but hopefully research and projects like Project Baltic can help. And someone has written that it is fashionable to study and talk about climate regulation. So what would you, do you think this fashion is a good thing or a bad thing? Who wrote this?
It was me.
Yeah.
Because it's also shows that what Aurelia was commenting, that it's quite also comparatively easy to make economic evaluations of this service compared might be to other services, and also current climate policies are climate adaptation policies. They are using some assessments related to climate regulations, emphasizing the role of oceans and seas. So at least this, to my mind, is one of fashion topics in last years.
Yeah. And it is an important topic, climate regulation.
Yeah, that's why it also mirrors in studies and researches. So
But
it's not neglected. So it is.
Yeah. But do you like this fashion, or would you rather see some other ecosystem service studied?
I think it's very important that this is uptaken in a policy and decision maker, so that there is this demand-driven study. So I see it's beneficial to have multiple studies, multiple outcomes, to have several kind of assessments, which gives also for decision makers to look at alternatives, because we do need alternatives in decision making. It cannot be that one figure or one number is a correct one.
Yeah, that is correct. And I hope that with this fashion on climate regulation studies, we get more results and more concrete measures and options to deal with it and increase the climate regulation ecosystem service globally, but also in the Baltic Sea. I see there's a lot of post-its in climate regulation, but do you have some views on recreation or culture or heritage? They are welcome as well.
If I may, I cannot find the way how to raise hand or something like that. If I may comment, I put a note on cultural cultural or heritage. I think this is not maybe sufficiently covered or considered, because it is really difficult somehow to assess and estimate these values, that they can be maybe communicated, somehow to quantify these values, that they can be communicated and somehow considered in the policy making and decision making process. There are so diverse maybe issues related to this culture or heritage, and how this ecosystem. This is I think that this is a bit complex process of how these values are created, and they are difficult for assessment, and I feel they are also at the same time what what we see from studies, that this is more important for coastal areas and regions, less important on the maybe national scale, but still due to difficulty to assess them, they are not sufficiently considered. And then on recreation, I would say, these are among the. This is I would say among the most valued and assessed ecosystem service. There are various approaches how to assess them. So from the perspective of research, I think there is good enough knowledge and also enough maybe consideration of this service for policy making. That would be my view. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would hopefully I don't take too much space, and if somebody wants to,
No, please.
to. I would like to bring up like a very hands-on example, because it's like kind of theoretical, right, that we're discussing right now, and I think it always helps to have like a clear example. So in Malmö right now, they approved like a land extension that will be on the like eelgrass meadow, like a quite big eelgrass meadow that is currently protected, and it's been going on for years now, the process. But now the part that will extend the harbor won, so they're going to do it, and this eelgrass meadow is going to die. And I'm not big on ecosystem services, but if that would have saved the eelgrass meadow, I would have been all for it. But now, not even that helped, right? And so there is a bit of an uproar, but it's really a small group of people. And there is not like this societal, like civil society movement of doing something against it. And I think there's a very clear measurement there. Like, we just want to keep the meadow, right? That would be a clear measurement of success. And that's why I kind of think it's really important to see how we can connect those different sectors, right? I mean, it might be covered by scientists, but if nobody reads the papers, it doesn't matter. There might be an uproar in civil society, but if the politicians don't listen to us and want to just make money with property, that doesn't really matter. So I'm really wondering how, in this very particular case, how we can look at it and see how those different sectors and those different ecosystem services can actually give us the measurable result of like protecting this meadow, for example.
Yes, very, very important. And I will let experts maybe theorize more, but I can promote that Protect Baltic will develop methods for this valuation of different ecosystem components in the Baltic Sea that can be then extended to other sea areas as well. So, and a toolbox for this valuation. So hopefully that would also be adopted by people other than researchers and civil society, and really get this ecosystem service valuation and tools to the general knowledge and prevent cases like this one you described. Susanna, do you have a comment, or Friederike? Yes?
Yeah, I wanted to support that argument that valuation could really be the way to help forward, although it is probably very difficult to value a seagrass meadow in terms of monetary units or whatever. But I feel that, for example, the cultural or heritage sectors, at least in my country, they have a very strong lobby, because they can always put numbers on their benefits. Now they can say, oh, if we can't do our fishing trips, that we lose this much income to us personally or so. So I'm thinking the problem with the biodiversity related services, which climate regulation would be one of them, really is that people cannot put a direct monetary value to it, or maybe that even this monetary value is not accepted, or if society isn't used to a seagrass meadow being valued in terms of money, whereas it is very used to fisheries benefits being valued in money, if you know what I mean.
Yes, exactly. Susanna, would you like to add?
I would like to ask, do you still think that the monetary valuation should be used when we are trying to value, for example, these seagrass meadows or other biodiversity components, or should we just skip the monetary values and try some other evaluation method?
I'm really not an expert. I don't know what options there are to valuing sort of like these more abstract services, and I'm from gut feeling, I would guess that monetarian values are not the easiest, or maybe also not the best, but I also don't know of any other ways how it could be done.
If I may, maybe have just one perspective on this valuation. I think maybe, so since I'm representing the research community and on environmental economist, and so dealing with economic valuation. So I think maybe one issue is that we communicate maybe properly what we are doing with this monetary valuation. I think we are simplifying a bit the wording what we use, that we do not attach value to specific habitats because this value cannot be measured. What we can do is we can measure the impact of this ecosystem service. For instance, we can estimate avoided costs to society or recreational benefits for humans, but not the value of a specific component. And I think when we use this simplified wording, that we cannot value like these I don't know, mussel beds. This is not the value of ecosystem components. This is the some kind of like employment, added value for a sector, or if we talk about, for instance, nutrient assimilation done by ecosystem, by a lot of components provide this service, nutrient. So we can, what one method is to estimate that avoided costs for wastewater treatment, if taking into account how large nutrient amount is sequestered in the ecosystem. So we can measure, monetize avoided costs for society. So I think one way of what I wanted to say is that one way of getting a bit understanding and acceptance for valuation is maybe to communicate a bit using more proper wording and terminology, because with the simplified wording we sometimes create a misunderstanding of what we are doing and what these values are, what we are providing. I think that's one issue, and because we have a lot of negative maybe reactions from environmental community also, that we cannot attach value to ecosystem components, but this is not what we are doing, because the value is, there is also existence value, intrinsic value. We cannot measure it. There are no methods and approaches to measure the value of the ecosystem, but we can measure some kind of socioeconomic impacts or flows of these values, various perspectives for linked to human well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. It is a difficult topic, and I would like to ask if other people have ideas of how to do this valuation. Which way are we doing it the right way now? We appreciate your input in Protect Baltic because we aim to create some kind of valuation tool based on best available knowledge, of course, but your input is, of course, helpful. But if not, then I would like to close this discussion session and wrap slowly. Yes, Friederike?
I just have one more thought. I wonder whether a labeling system like on food for nutritional value would be a good way of communicating value, and in that sense you could distinguish services that are sort of more basic, you know. For example, if you think of biodiversity, conserving biodiversity is one of the basic services, because lots of other services build on it. You know, fisheries depends on whether you can conserve enough biodiversity to sustain fish stocks that you then can fish, and whether that would provide a kind of like a basis for a labeling system that everybody could understand, even if they don't have a scientific background. Just a thought.
Yeah, nice. Where would you put these labels? Label the ecosystem service or put a label in products and tell about the ecosystem services?
Good question. Maybe wherever you can, actually. But yeah, I haven't really thought about it any further.
Yeah, well, thank you for this innovative idea, because one of the end products actually of Protect Baltic is this artificial reality app where you can go anywhere in the Baltic Sea in an MPA and get the information from that MPA, and maybe we could add a label of the ecosystem services that the MPA are different ecosystem functions and components they're produced, and that way raise people's awareness of the ecosystem services and how important they are. Thank you for that. And with that, I would like to close this Miro session and have some final words, and Susanna can start sharing again for a summary. And first, I would like to again go back to the Slido questions in the workshop and write an adjective or emoji if you know how to do that on a computer, and how do you feel after this workshop? At least I'm feeling a bit tired and a bit disappointed in the technical difficulties we had, but I have enjoyed our discussion here today, and I really feel thankful for everyone that you have joined the discussion so much and been through with us even through these technical challenges. And someone wrote challenged and a thoughtful face. Yes, there is still a lot to be learned and researched about ecosystem services. Yes, I see a smile face. That's all I was hoping for. Right. You can still vote in the Slido, but Susanna will show a summary about your voted ecosystem service components.
Yes, so this is from the time that the group work was still functioning well. So we will take a look at your votes of the different ecosystem services. And wait a minute, I will just change the slide. So here are the summary of the most voted ecosystem services. And now I'm not sure if that's too small for you to see. Just a moment, I will make it a bit bigger. So here you can see that at least the votes were spread quite nicely among different ecosystem services. So we were quite small group, so some of the services didn't get any votes. For example, the flood and storm surge mitigation or gamete dispersal. But then rest of the services, or most of the services, got some votes, and the biggest one was maintaining of a regulating nursery and feeding habitats of the species that are important for us. And maybe this is something that we can elaborate shortly, because even though we are now looking at the individual services, but giving this many votes for a service that actually kind of supports the benefits that we are gaining from the sea is maybe something that we also need to take as a home message, that we inside of the looking at the services, we really need to understand the functioning of the system and how it produces the services, which is kind of the basic of all the rest. A lot of votes were also given to wild animals harvested for nutrition, materials, and energy. So this bar here, and then climate regulation, recreation, and also scientific investigation got a lot of votes. So thanks a lot for these. Some wrap up from our discussion. I just took really shortly some notes. We have the recording for the full notes later, but some of the highlights that we have discussed today, for example, the definition of ecosystem services and the term, can we think of it as a two-way, that the humans can also get benefits, or the humans can benefit nature, but then that was highlighted that the project restoration acts actually are the benefits given to nature by us humans. Then there was a lot of discussion about the climate regulation. I wrote here fashionable at the moment. It's a hot topic, and it's a lot of there's a lot of research going on at the moment, and a lot of valuation studies as well. We can value it both in economical and social cultural terms. And then there was mentioned that the recreation is already also quite highly valued and researched at the moment, and maybe it's time to take a proper action about that service if we know recreational services quite much already. Then there was an important mention about connecting different sectors and how bringing these sectors or the services into the policy making, so that we would not only be in the research bubble, but also to bring these in actual decision making to benefit the sectors that are actually using the ecosystem services. Then there was a discussion about the monetary values and how to put value on certain things. For example, using avoided costs is one way of understanding the value of regulating services. And then, of course, intrinsic values of the nature ecosystems were mentioned. Those were some highlights. You will get some wrap up of the session also later, because we have some summary of the workshops for the afternoon plenary. So please be there. There's another workshop session first in the afternoon, and then there's the plenary session where we will wrap up all the workshops. Then there will be a conference report published later, and you will receive a feedback form after the conference where you can choose how to stay in touch with the project. So there are multiple options how you can subscribe to our newsletter or be in touch with in other ways. So there will be information about those ways more in detail. And then, of course, our presentations and recordings and all the material will be shared in a repository later. The breakout groups were not recorded, but this main session has been recorded, so this will be shared with you later. Yeah, that was from my part. Aino, would you still say the final words?
Yes, I would just still like to thank everyone for your patience with the technical difficulties, and thank you for all the discussions and all the wonderful data and material we have gained from you for our work with ecosystem services in the Protect Baltic project. And I hope you will be in touch with us later and subscribe to our newsletter, or if you want to specifically be part of the work package for work, that is also an option that will be included in the form, the feedback form to be sent. But now it's time for lunch, and I hope you have a good time in the workshop session afternoon. And thanks, and have a good lunch. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.